Welcome to our workshop today. It's First Gen Global Q&A session, and we were doing a visa and career advice for international graduate students. My name is Esther Ra. I'm one of the associate directors in Penn Career Services. What are some of the main challenges you see international students facing as part of their job search? This is a question we get, not necessarily this particular question posed to us, but we often get posed, what can I do to overcome X challenge, right? So we will acknowledge that, as an international student, you have so many wonderful strengths that you bring with you to another country. Many of you are bilingual, trilingual, quadrilingual, and that's an amazing asset. But there are extra hurdles being in a different country that you will face in being an international student. And so one of the biggest things that I have found when international students are looking for a job is finding out whether or not the employer sponsors someone who needs OPT or a visa. And so we do have a lot of resources on our website and that can help you. We have a lot of data that support where some of our graduates have gone from Penn after they've left here, and some employers that do support visa and OPT. So I think that's one of the main challenges I have seen. Joseph, any challenges that you've seen in your corner?
Yeah, so the oftentimes this is framed as, I'd really like to work for this employer, but that employer doesn't sponsor. What are my options moving forward? And it's really hard because, first of all, it's very difficult to know exactly how employers hire and who they hire and what their process is, because within a large employer, let's say a healthcare or a tech company, there are so many departments and divisions and areas, and their hiring practices aren't always consistent across the board. And so some areas may not sponsor, but some may. Some may not sponsor for certain types of roles, but some for other types of roles they may, right? And so when someone says, I see that this employer has come to Penn's career fair, but they say they don't sponsor, what can I do? I think the advice is always, don't let that immediately be a no-go area, but explore, right? Make sure that you are looking at the alumni from Penn who might be working there to see if there are international alumni who might have roles or who might be able to give you some perspective on whether the international students are viable as great candidates for those roles that are. And you are viable in terms of your skills. It's just whether they have that willingness to sponsor moving forward. There's lots of different ways to sort of think about whether you can or cannot work for an employer. But the other side of that is no matter if an employer sponsors or not, there's always something that you can learn from engaging with them, right? So you may not be able to position yourself for a role, no fault of your own, just because of the visa perspective, but you can still learn about some of the skills and the knowledge areas that are valued by that type of company. And what you learn from an interaction with an alum who might work there, you might then be able to apply as you're applying for different types of opportunities at different firms.
H-1Bs are thought of as the main visa option. Do graduate students qualify for any other types of long-term visas given their specialty knowledge? So this is definitely a question that we often get. From the career perspective, we don't necessarily give advice on visas. And so we often will present along with some of our ISSS advisors. And so I would suggest making an appointment with them to talk thoroughly about your visa issues and visa concerns, because it's only when you're working with both of our offices that you'll be set up for success. We have our colleague here, Chi Wei from ISSS, and I wonder if she can add some voice to this question. Are there other options for H-1Bs for graduate students that they can apply for that are long-term?
So for H-1B is the most traditional options for, especially for international students and employees. And then if you hold higher qualification, for example, if you have PhD in a very extraordinary area, then maybe you can try O1 visa. And then some of the company, while you are on your OPT, they may approach you and ask you whether you want to, whether you are interested in permanent residency. That's the PR. Yeah, but most of the time, H-1B is the most common way. And then another thing is that if you are from countries like Mexico or Canada, then you may have TN option. And then if you are from Australia, then E3 will be your option in addition to H1B.
Thank you, Chi-Wei. Chi-Wei, do you want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, my name is Chi-Wei Huang Ma, and I'm from ISSS. I'm one of the advisors.
Are there types of employers who are not subject to the H-1B category, such as universities and nonprofits? So
Yes.
I often get this question from our SP2 and GSE students.
So I understand that a lot of students that you guys are working in non-university or non-profit organization, then you are subject to cap. But if you try to find like working in higher education or some other nonprofit organization, that there is a very high possibility that the organization or your employer are not subject to cap. That means that you don't need to run through lottery and then go through the selection process and eventually got to be selected. Yeah, some of my students, they came to me, they said that, well, for 3 years, STEM OPT and STEM OPT, they did not even be selected by H1B. So there will be a huge problem for them if they want to continue to stay in the United States and work. Yeah, so if you can find jobs in universities or other nonprofit organizations, then we are not subject to the lottery process. Yeah, but then when you go for interview, you certainly want to check with them and ask them, well, are you guys cap exempt? Do I need to run through lottery if you guys are willing to file H1B for me?
Okay. So the question is, are you cap exempt?
Yeah, are you cap exempt?
What are some of the most common questions you get from international graduate students or postdocs?
Okay, so I know that if you guys want to work, a lot of you are not so sure about OPT and STEM OPT, whether like some of the students came to me and asked, well, now I apply for OPT, am I right that one time of OPT application, because I'm a STEM major, so that I will get 3 years, okay, once I apply for OPT. So just to clarify that OPT and STEM OPT are two separate processes. So once you apply for OPT, at the end of the expiration day of your OPT, then you want to apply for STEM OPT. So they are two separate applications. So this is one thing. And another thing, a lot of students want to ask us about H1B process and just want to know that H1B, the sponsor is your employer. And so O1, when you are on OPT and STEM OPT, we are your sponsor. So we take care of your I-20 and then we help you review your document. But once you are on H1B, then your sponsor is your employer. So they will take care of the application part.
Yeah, from the career perspective, we often get questions from international students about timing. And so one thing that we often collaborate with ISSS a lot with, especially with our other colleague, Jeremy, is we often will, walk students through timeline, from our career perspective, you might have a timeline in terms of when you're graduating, you want to have something lined up. And then from a visa perspective, you want to have something that sort of doesn't leave you with a gap. And so it's working with both of our offices to sort of figure out that timeline. And also, a lot of the questions we answer for international students and postdocs often are related to communication. And so when we're advising students, we're talking about, what are professional sort of cultural nuances that they may not know about as well. And we're happy to answer any questions, even if, it may seem silly, they're not silly. We're happy to answer questions about like, does this email sound polite, or does this email sent as a follow-up sound okay? I've definitely reviewed some of those in an appointment with students. And so a lot of the questions I would say that we get from international graduate students often surround networking, interviewing, negotiating, because those are all communication pieces that I think our international students want support with. And so we do have a lot of resources on our website that delineate a lot of those, on those topics. We also have a Penn Career Services YouTube that we certainly recommend that you peruse. A lot of the videos from a lot of our workshops from this week will be uploaded as videos on our Penn Career Services web YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Esther, now I think about something.
Yeah.
So for postdocs, like postdoc researchers, some of the students came to ask us that, well, I'm now in a postdoc position. Can I use my OPT to work on a postdoc position? And the answer is yes. You can use your OPT with any position as long as this position is not only reserved for students to do. For example, there are some jobs in different departments they call student assistants. If you already graduate from Penn, then you cannot work in position that only reserved for students. Other than that, postdoc researcher, then it's totally fine. You can work on postdoc researcher job.
Shui, can you speak a little bit speak to like volunteer?
Is it better now?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you speak to a little bit about volunteering?
Volunteer. Okay. After graduation, well, you were talking about after graduate, right? After graduation, right?
Like sometimes I'll have students come and say, I found a position, it's working as a research assistant, but I'm not going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a volunteer position,
Mm-hmm.
and they want the position, especially if they're going on for graduate school, doctoral studies.
Mm-hmm.
Having that kind of experience is helpful, especially for application. So how would a student navigate that?
Okay. So for student working on volunteer position, before graduation, then if you want to work for a volunteer position in a lab or in a research position that is unpaid, we would recommend you still get CPT to cover your visa status. Okay. So as long as this position is related to your course of study, you should be able to get a CPT. Okay, even it's unpaid, it's volunteer. Especially if you want to use this position to be put on your resume. Okay, so you just want to make sure that in the future, when you are applying for H-1B, the lawyer or the USCIS, they will look through your resume. And then if you want to put this position on your resume, but they cannot find the employment authorization, then there will be an issue. So just want to make sure before graduation, yes, you can work on a position that is unpaid, but you want to make sure to apply for OPT, to apply for CPT to protect your status. And after graduation, for OPT, you can work for unpaid position. That's fine. But you just want to make sure that this position, again, is highly related to your course of study. Okay, you want to make sure this is highly related to your course of study so that this can be considered OPT job so that you can report this job to us. And then, well, I think majority of you know that for OPT, you only have 90 days of unemployment, right? So some of the students, before they find their dream job, they can use this unpaid job to stop the 90 days clock. Yeah.
Actually, you bring up something that also comes up often in my advising appointments is, students will often be, majoring or, their field of study is not related to what they want to apply for. So recently we've seen an uptick in students that are interested in business or consulting, but they're at, GSE and they don't have a background in that. So what happens in that case? Is that viable?
I would suggest you not to do it. If you cannot find any relevancy, unless you can prove the relevancy between your training at Penn and the job you really want to do. Okay, let's say that if you work for a consulting job, then your clients are majority higher education organization or something, you may be able to prove some relevancy with your training at Penn. But then if they said that if you really love animals and then you want to work in a vet office, but you have an education degree or you have an engineering degree, then I really cannot find any relevancy. So for OPT job reporting, you just want to make sure that you can establish the relevancy. And then in the future, okay, when your future employer is applying for H-1B or even PR for you, you want to make sure that if the USCIS come and then ask you, what are you doing with this job? You will be able to present evidence to show the relevancy that, hey, I do a job in a consulting firm, but my clients majority are higher education or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so there definitely has to be some sort of overlap
Relevancy,
with your
overlap.
current course of study at Penn and your future role in the workplace.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great advice.
Mm.
What is the best advice as an ISS advisor, Chi-Wei, that you give to, that you usually share with international students?
Okay. From the immigration office perspective, I will just remind you that you cannot work without authorization before you graduate from Penn. Whatever job that you find, that you just want to make sure that you have adequate employment authorization to cover your F1 status in the United States. Throughout my years at Penn, we unfortunately has to send some student home because they work without employment authorization. And then this is a very severe violation of your status in the United States. And I understand that a lot of students coming here with American dreams. You guys want to start working as soon as possible, but you just want to make sure that you do not violate your F1 status in the United States.
No, that's very good advice. One piece of advice that we often share, and I mentioned it before, is, timeline is so important when you're looking for, your next position, especially leaving from Penn. And so because that timeline is pretty particular, especially in terms of getting your OPT and getting all that lined up, we really, really suggest that you come in and meet with a career advisor early. And, we have many students, we have many wonderful, intelligent students at Penn, and a lot of the students will say, oh, my friend told me this. Well, I think a lot of the times, your friends can definitely be a sounding board, but we really do suggest that you meet with your ISS advisor as well as a career advisor to help you along in the steps, because, we can help sort of share the resources that are on campus that can steer you in the direction that you need to go. And you can still bounce off, you can share your cover letter with a friend and get some feedback. But then you can also come in and meet with an advisor in our office, Career Services, and have someone who is familiar with the American marketplace and have them review it on top of that. So we really suggest you utilize the resources that are at your fingertips.
Yeah.
There are so many at Penn, and it's just a matter of utilizing them, knowing where they are. And so taking advantage of all of that. And many of those graduate students that we work with, they're coming in very, on a tight timeline. 1 year at GSE, many of you, a lot of SP2 folks coming in for a year or 12 months. And so, doctoral students are here for a bit longer, postdocs are here for a bit longer. But those of you who are here on a shorter timeline, it's really best advised for you to come and meet with your ISS advisor like Chi-Wei and then a career advisor like myself or Joseph, that work respectively with your schools so that you have the best chance of job and opportunities for the future.
Yeah.
So there are many advising and coaching opportunities through that.
Yeah. Esther, I just see a question. Do you want me to answer a question like I just see, or we should answer all the question at the end?
Is there a question that you have? Yes, you can certainly raise it.
I see there's a question on the chat. Yep. I just happened to see it. And this student, she's asking, can student work from home country for remote summer internship?
Good question.
So, this is a very good question. I encounter this question all the time. Just to let you know that for you to apply for CPT is to protect your status in the United States. So when you are physically here in the United States, you need CPT. But they said that if you are in your home country, and then you are working for a company in the United States, if you are physically in your home country, then you do not need CPT. The only time that you need CPT is that when you are physically working in the United States. But then they say if this job that you are working in your home country, they want you to come to the United States to do a week of training, right? For this week, because you are physically in the United States, then you will need CPT. Okay. And then another question I often encounter from students is that, well, how about I'm in the United States, I'm working for a company that is outside of the United States. And then just like what I said, that because you are physically in the United States, even though that you are working virtually for this company, and this company is located, let's say, in Germany. Okay, but due to your physical presence in the United States, so you need to apply for CPT to protect your F1 status. Yeah, so the judgment call is where you are when you work for them. If you are in the United States, then you need to apply for CPT. If you are taking even training, if you are training activities, or you come to United States for a conference, as long as you are physically here for training or for any employment-related activities in the United States, then you need CPT. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. We often encounter that more now post, almost post-pandemic.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Are you hearing about any likely changes coming in immigration law?
During the pandemic, one of the major.
Sorry, Chewy, can I interrupt you? There was a follow-up question from someone in the chat that I just noticed before you go into this question.
Sure.
So not needing CPT while working remotely in another country means there is no work authorization needed.
Yes, no authorization needed in the United States. Yeah, maybe if you go to Britain and then you are from some other country, you will need their work authorization in Britain. Yeah.
But not in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
they said, thank
you. Is there any change? During pandemic, there are a list of changes. Yeah, some are very good. For example, they allow us to sign on your I-20 with digital signature, and they hasn't changed yet. So now students can still use the I-20 with our digital signature to enter the United States. And we do not foresee there will be a change on this policy. Another thing that is the 5-month rule. 5-month rule in the past, before the pandemic, means that students with F1 visa can only stay outside of the United States for less than 5 months. If your time outside of the United States exceed 5 months, then your status will be terminated. Okay, that's before the pandemic. But after or during the pandemic, a lot of student travel, a lot of virtual learning happened. So this 5-month rule is temporarily suspended. But we often suggest our students to really monitor this 5-month rule. And we do not like to see students be overseas for too long. Okay, even though that the 5-month rule is still suspended now, but you do not know when it will come back, right? So we still suggest our students not to stay overseas for too long. Yeah.
A question just came in. Does the 5-month rule also apply to J1 student visas?
I think so. This one, I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. I can double check and get back. Yeah.
Okay, we can move on to the next question. For international graduate students who are in the US as first-generation students, as part of their graduate degree, what type of support exists on Penn's campus?
Esther, do you want me to answer this question?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Especially all the student groups through ISSS.
Okay, so ISS office, we have 2 parts of service. One part, as the majority of you most familiar with, is immigration service. So we help you with your I-20, and we help consultation with your visa process. And when you come here, we help with your employment authorization for CPT and OPT, and travel. If you have travel, making like international travel during your school time or even after graduation on your STEM OPT and OPT, we help with consultation as well. And then this is our immigration part. And for integration, we do have a lot of activities helping students to integrate into the into the U.S. community. So we have a lot of tea time in our office, and we also have some sort of a different student organization to help our office to become better, or to just train future international leaders. So just check on our website. We have all sorts of information on our website that will interest you.
Yeah, and certainly we at Career Services also have a lot of programming for international students. Some are specific to schools, like, if you are attending the design school, or if you're in the engineering school, some are specific to the needs of the students in those schools. But we do have, things like this, which is open to all graduate students, or something that a workshop that's open to all undergraduates. And so we do have that. We do have those kinds of programming. All of our advisors are versed in working with international students. And so, we try and do our best to point you to the resources that will be helpful for you. So certainly we have data that we can help share with you. Our first destination data that first destination data is the data that encompasses all the places all of our students have gone after they've left Penn and have graduated, and then all the employers that have hired Penn International students as well.
Oh, wow.
There's also other student groups. There are student groups on campus. There are several, I think, through ISSS, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, like International Student Advisory Board or
ISAB.
Intercultural Leadership, something. Yeah, we do have a lot of programs on our integration site. Mm-hmm.
And we do have a lot of cultural centers on campus as well, which integrate a lot of our international students. And so there's a lot of, social structures out there as well to help.
Yeah.
We work with the Assembly of International Students, AIS, sometimes to do programming and present workshops. So there are a lot of active bodies on campus, places and niches for international students to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for international students, what you like to do at your home country, just try to find a club here. If you love to sing, wow, Penn has a lot of club for a student who love to sing. Or if you like to present, or if you love to row, you want to bike, just try to find a club and enjoy this hobby with local students. Yeah, I think that's one of the best way to make friends.
Absolutely. Yes. Whatever you're interested in, I'm sure there's something on campus related to that interest, right?
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Joseph posted another link.
Yeah, or you could start one.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Esther. Yeah, you can start one.
Yeah, you can start one. Okay, let's go to the next question. Can you talk about some of the international student groups that you work with on campus? So we sort of answered our question here. International Assembly of International Students. There's also on the graduate level, there's GAPSA, and GAPSA is the graduate governing body for graduate students, and they have an international, I believe, chair that we work with sometimes and have done some programming with. And so that's another group that you might want to be aware of. Any others, Chi-Wei, that you can think of?
Yeah, I now posted our integration link website there on the chat. So we have student program leadership opportunities, and we also have, what do I say? We also have workshop. Yeah, some of the student program that Esther just mentioned is, I'm not opening, Forerunner, Intercultural Leadership Program, Cultural Crossing, International Student Advisory Board, International Student Table for for relation. And then, yeah, we do have a lot of different programs and then all listed on our integration website.
Yeah. And when in doubt, ask someone, ask an advisor.
Ask us.
Yeah, absolutely. From a visa perspective, it is important for international graduate students to build strong academic connections with faculty at Penn. Is it important?
Yeah, it's certainly very important. Some of our students, especially when your visa processing process got into administrative processing. We do have some students when they apply for F1 visa outside of in their home country and then encounter some issue and then their visa was put in administrative processing. Okay. And then at this time you want to contact your faculty, especially if you are a master's student or a PhD student, you want to contact your faculty and then ask them whether they can write you a letter and then to just explain more about what you are doing at Penn. So it's certainly important from the visa perspective. And then from career perspective, Esther, I think it's even more important, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly from a career perspective, especially if you're thinking about doctoral studies and down the line. And I find that most international students do because, they've come here and they realize, oh, I want to stay longer to study. Sometimes, there might be a gap in that, but it's really a good idea to, in some ways, network with your professors on campus. First of all, your professors are, have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of connections. And so a lot of the thing that we hear a lot from international students is, I don't have a network here in the US. And that may be true, but you can start with your professor and start with who they know, your program managers too. And it's great to keep in touch with them because down the line, you can certainly tap into them and into the knowledge that they have, especially if you're thinking about going further on for another degree or a doctorate. And so it's really great to have those connections. And also, especially with some of our international faculty, they certainly have international connections too. If you're not looking to stay domestic, but you want to go back to your home country or a different country in your continent, it's a great way to continue your connections with Penn. Yeah,
that's very true. That I have graduated from Penn for many, many years. And when I was looking for a job, I look for recommendation letters. And this recommendation letter would be very powerful from your faculty. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also a graduate of Penn, an alum, and so I have to say the Penn connection is very strong.
Yeah.
And I share this with folks, but I was in Asia last summer, and I was constantly running in to Penn alumni.
Oh.
So they are in every corner of the world, and they are in positions that might be of help to you. So definitely, be open to having conversations. And if you're not sure what networking is, then come see us in our office, and we're more than happy to walk you through networking strategies, practice networking with you. And tell you about informational interviewing so that you can really tap into some resources with folks that are in places where you might want to go.
Cool, very cool.
How can international graduate students connect with international Penn alumni?
For me, my personal experience is to use LinkedIn. Yeah. So a lot of my previous classmates from law school, we connect each other with LinkedIn. Of course, Facebook. Well, I'm older generation. I know younger generation, you guys do not use Facebook that much. But social media, I think, is one of the good way. And also to stay connect with your particular school's alumni organization or something. They will send you newsletter and try to connect with them and then come back to join some alumni event. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, LinkedIn, Penn, University of Pennsylvania Alumni Group is many thousands strong. So go ahead and join that. You can find so many alumni on there, international, domestic, every corner that you can imagine. There's also a resource called My Pen, which is an in-house platform that we have here that houses our alumni from, I think, back to the 70s or 80s. And so we have alumni on there from everywhere, and they're from every school at Penn. And so you can go in there and you can access it. If you're looking for a certain company in Germany, you can look and see if that company is represented among our alumni. Chances are, yes, they might be. But you might, if not, you might be able to find someone who has worked at maybe in that city, or maybe in a neighboring city, or find an alumni chapter that's in that city. So definitely, as Chi-Wei mentioned, the alumni network is strong. If you're overseas and you're, say, back in your home country, there's likely to be an alumni chapter somewhere near you. And so even if you're not able to physically join them for activities and workshops, I'm willing to bet that they have a presence online. So check out and see if they have social media, Instagram, Facebook, email listservs. And so check and see LinkedIn groups, check and see what is available. I know for myself, I went to school in New York City, and I'm part of the alumni group for my undergrad and my graduate school for my master's. And I'm constantly getting emails or messages through social media. I'm an alum, and I'm in the Philadelphia area because it's a different city. I would love to know, any resources around this area. An alum will jump in. And so I don't know, every city kind of operates its own alumni channel in that way, but check out and see what's available and see if you can connect with people. And even if they're not in your field, they may know people in your field. So using that networking power and reaching out and seeing who they know is totally possible too.
Wow. Joseph just mentioned that there are 190,000 Penn alumni on LinkedIn and current students.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very powerful. Amazing.
Next question. What are some of the important deadlines for an international student to keep in mind?
There are so many deadlines. Okay. So after you arrive Penn, remember to do your new student check-in. Okay, within 30 days. Okay, I think majority of the 99% of the students know that and already done that when you are here. And then another thing I think is when you apply for, one thing is that if you plan to do program extension, let's say that you feel like, well, for 2 years and then there are some issues with my curriculum, so I was not able to complete my study within 2 years. So I think I need another half a year or another 1 semester. With this, you want to really make sure to talk to your academic department about this. If they agree, you want to submit this request to us. And this need to happen before your current program end day. Okay, now that if you look at your I-20 days of program end day, May 15 is your program end day. If you think that you need an extra semester or even an extra year to complete your program or to complete your study, you want to make sure that you submit the program extension e-form to us. And then you also want to make sure that we will be able to review and approve it before the program end day. That means that you should give yourself at least a month to try to work things out, because you need to talk to your advisor, academic advisor, and then need to update your rocker, and you need to come to talk to us, and we need to update your rocker. So it is especially important if you have the intention to extend your program, you want to make sure everything happens before your real program end day on your I-20. And then another thing is that when you are on OPT or when you are applying for OPT, be sure to check with us about traveling. Okay, I'm not going to get into detail about how the timeline will work out. But then for your individual travel plan, you want to make sure to check with your ISS advisor about traveling when you are planning to apply for OPT. Okay. Yeah, these are the major things that student need to. And then last thing, I was surprised to find out that one of my students, he came to me, he said, well, I did not know I need a valid F1 visa to be able to enter the United States. So just want to make sure. Yeah, he was stopped at the border because he did not have a valid F1 visa to return. He was he is on OPT. So just want to make sure when you are on OPT and STEM OPT, you still want to keep valid F1 visa to be able to return to the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yes. I mean, from a career perspective, the deadlines are so variable. So, I think we can't emphasize it enough, but starting early in your search and, even if it's just an idea, fleshing out your ideas with an advisor in our office is a good idea. And maybe through that fleshing out process, you might find that, oh, I don't think this is a road for me, you might switch gears, and that's okay. But we suggest starting early. I think with folks that are applying to doctoral programs and other master's programs or professional programs, certainly working ahead so that, your deadlines are in mind. And so making sure that if you do need someone to look over your materials, that you give yourself enough time. Same thing with job applications. If you know that your visa and all of that is a certain timeline and you need certain things by a certain date by the end of the month, then certainly work ahead of time so that you have all your materials, your resume, your cover letter, all of that ready to go, a CV if you need it, so that, you're not held up by, having you need someone to look at it to make sure that everything is in order. So definitely have those things ready on hand. Make sure you update your LinkedIn profile as well, because once you apply to employers and to graduate schools, that's one of the first things that they will look at.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Julia. Can you get OPT while you're waiting for a green card?
Yes. So before your status change, the last step for green card is I-485. That's the adjustment of your immigration status. Before that happen, you need to have something to enable you to work. And then if you are a student, OPT is the best way for you to enable to work before you get your green card. But again, because I'm not your immigration attorney, I do not know which stage you are in with green card. So you want to double check with your immigration attorney, especially if you need to travel. Okay, good. Let's say your F1 visa has already expired and you need to travel to get your F1 visa, and then you have a green card pending, then this is very tricky. You really want to check with your immigration attorney about this. Okay.
And then Evelyn here asked, how long can we use CPT? I heard if you use CPT up to 12 months, your OPT will be canceled accordingly.
Yeah, that's correct. So for CPT, there is always a start date and end date, and then it's actually based on your offer letter. Okay, so if your employer said that I'm going to have you start working June 1st and end on August 1st, then we will give you CPT based on the offer letter date. Okay, and then it is correct if you use your CPT for 12 months full time, then your OPT is going to be canceled. Okay, but if you work for 11 months and 29 days, then it's fine. You just do not want to exceed 12 months. Okay, but then majority of the student, if you are in a master program or bachelor program, majority of you wouldn't exceed the 12 months unless you are a PhD student. Yeah, but just want to be super, super careful.
Great questions. Does a student need to have a job offer to get the OPT permit or their EAD card?
Very good question. The student does not need an OPT job to get OPT. Okay, that means that when you apply for OPT, you don't need a job offer because it's an authorization that come with your F1 visa. it does not come with a job. So you do not need a job when you apply for OPT. But once you get an EAD card, you get a job, you need to report to us. Okay, because you only have 90 days of unemployment on your record. So if you do not report to us, nobody knows that you have already started to work. Okay, so we need to report a job to stop the 90 days of unemployment clock.
Yeah, so it's a matter of like that clock stopping and making sure
yes.
that everything is accounted for.
Mhm.
Yeah. Apart from H-1B, what are some other visas that international students can consider?
Mhm. Okay, so for H-1B, of course, PR is the best, right? If your employer is willing to apply for sponsor you with PR, then try to do it. But if your employer is not willing to do that, there is another option called national interest waiver. Then you can explore the option with the immigration attorney. That one you can sponsor. You can be self-sponsored. Okay, that's apart from H-1B. And just like what I have mentioned, O1 may be an option if you are a person of extraordinary ability. You have a certain award, or you write very top journal publication, then you may be considered for O1. And for students from Australia, then you may have E3. And Canada and Mexico, you may have TN option other than H-1B. So after OPT, these are basically the option. Yeah.
Okay.
Apart from H-1B. Yeah.
It sounds like for outside of those countries and outside of having special skill sets and extraordinary abilities, then H-1B is likely what's viable for most students.
Yeah, H-1B has a more like I think the requirement for H-1B is not as high as O1 or for PR. But TN and E3, those are qualified with your nationalities.
Yeah.
So these are the options.
Okay. Can an international student leave the country after graduating if they have a job offer? What if they don't have a job offer?
Okay. So I assume this question, the student plan to return, right? So you plan to return after you receive your, okay.
Or
so
maybe
after,
a visit. Yeah.
Yeah. So after graduation, okay, one thing we want to lay out. After graduation, you need an EAD card to be able to return to the United States. And the best scenario is that you have your EAD card and you also have a job offer. So when you return, the CBP officer knows that you have a purpose to come back, right? My purpose is to come back to work on a job. Look at me, I have my EAD card and I also have my updated I-20 and an offer letter. But how if I do not have an offer letter? I just have an EAD card. It's fine. I think majority of the CBP officer will be understanding and let you in. But if you do not have a job yet, but you have the EAD card, most of the time I would suggest my student to just bring some of the copies of the email correspondence to show that I'm still looking for a job, my communication with future employers, to show that I'm coming into the United States with a purpose. And my purpose is to work because this is my EAD card. And I'm still looking for a job, and look at this is the evidence. But if the CBP officer did not ask you to present any evidence, you do not need to show them. But if they ask you, why are you coming here? You do not have a job offer. Okay, and then you can say, well, even I do not have a job offer, but I'm looking for a job. Look at this. These are my email correspondence, or this is the letter, or someday you can show them about your ongoing efforts to find a job.